Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Welcome. So it's a great pleasure to introduce Dan Land, who's going to be talking today about Madoko. So let me say a few things about Dan before we start. So Dan joined Microsoft Research in 2006, and he's been, all the time he's been here, he's really been interested in type systems and the kinds of things you can express in types. And in particular, he's generated some very useful technology along the way. So in particular, if you use C# and write parallel code, you probably use the test parallel library, which he was a primary designer for. If you write code in Visual Studio Online, you might use the online editor, the browser-based editor, Madoko, and in fact, the syntax highlighting you'll see in Madoko is due to Dan's great work. So he's done really interesting things across the board here, and today he's going to talk about something based on another language he created called Coca, and in particular, a very useful replacement for LaTeX. I consider it the LaTeX of the 21st century, so you'll see why in a minute, Madoko. So with that, oh, and by the way, if you have questions, this is for the online people, if you have questions, there is a Ask Questions Online, and so if you type it in to ResNet, it'll show up on this this tablet of mine, and I can ask the question in the room. So with that,
awesome, yeah. Thanks, man. Awesome. So I'm Dan. And I'm going to talk today about Madoko, and it's not really a science talk, it's more a tool demonstration talk, and I hope it will be sweet and short, so that would be great. And normally I do a lot of, like Ben already said, I do a lot of type systems design, and recently I've been working especially on thinking about side effects and how to track that in a type system. So I was writing all these papers with lots of unintelligible math in it, and I thought, oh, it's a great type system. And then the reviewers came back to me and they said, yeah, we like it, but you know, does it really work in practice, right? In theory, we see it works. So I thought I have to write a few bigger programs with my new language Coca that does this side effect inference. But what kind of great example program should I write, right? So I thought normally people write their own compiler in their own language, but I thought I'll do something else. And hey, why not do a word processor, right? Well, I want to follow in the footsteps of Knut and our esteemed colleague Leslie Lamport, and maybe get a Turing Award too in the future. So that would be a great thing to do. So nowadays, when people think about word processors, what's really popular online with say, the young kids is Markdown. And Markdown is kind of persuasive throughout the internet, and the biggest users are like GitHub and Stack Overflow. But it's been invented a while ago by a writer called John Gruber, and he wrote a lot of blog posts, and he wanted a nicer way to write his blog posts. And he just needed HTML out of it, but he was really thinking about how can I write something that looks like a text email and then formats nicely. And as a writer, he wanted to really concentrate on his writing and his content and not on anything else. So he loved like plain text editing, and he wanted it to look like a very readable document on its own in the plain text, but then format nicely. And it became very popular. So there's many places where Markdown is used, and also in. And that's maybe most surprising in very non-technical communities where people like it a lot. Like there's a special Markdown variant for writing movie scripts, for example, and people use that all the time. So I thought, hey, let's write a Markdown processor in my new language Coca to show that my side effect type system really works, and that's what I've been doing. And of course, once I started doing that and it became bigger and bigger, I thought, well, I can almost write my own papers in this new Markdown. That would be cool. So I made something that I call now Madoko, and it's basically an extension of Markdown that makes it great for more serious use. Yeah.
Markdown is a specific language or a style of language?
So Markdown is, so John Gruber invented Markdown, the style of writing these kind of documents. So you write stars for a list, and then it renders nicely as a list. And he made also a little program called Markdown. But then in the wild, many people made extensions and Markdown processors, and so Markdown is now this common denominator of documents that look like this. But it's not officially, there's no official standard for it, although they're working on it. So when I say Madoko, I want to kind of stress that it's a variant of Markdown that makes it good for serious use. So one of the big problems with Markdown is it's too simple. Like it's great for if you want to write something really simple, but if you want to write an article, an academic paper, a big technical document, you need many things like cross-referencing and tables and figures and all these things. And standard Markdown doesn't do that. So Madoko is Markdown on steroids. And I made some judicious extensions such that you can actually define your own behavior. So in particular, with Madoko, you can create beautiful HTML and PDF, which is really nice. So your paper comes out in both HTML and in PDF. It's really nice to read and write because it's basically Markdown. So when you're writing your content, it looks nicer than if you would write LaTeX. And you can do still all the complex stuff that you would like to do, like numbering stuff and references, citations, mathematics, and all kinds of funny transformations on your text that people like us like to do a lot. And I'll give a lot of examples of that later on when I demo the thing for real. And I'm trying to avoid all the things that make LaTeX hard. Right? Actually, so I'll show an example of that. So here's a paper I recently submitted on a Coca type system, actually. But so it's all generated from one Madoko source. And so this is the PDF version that comes out. If I wouldn't be in F11, you would see it pop up here. So it's just it's a regular LL/NCS paper, and you wouldn't be able to distinguish it because it's generated by LaTeX in the end as the backend. So it's just a real paper. Of course, it has things that make you think, oh, it's kind of nice. Look at all this code. It looks nicely typeset with colors and everything. And you wouldn't usually do that in LaTeX because it's a lot of work to do that. But as you'll see later, like there's alignment nicely, right? It's usually hard stuff to do in code. There's still a lot of math in here. Let me see if I can find. Where's math? Later there will be a lot of math. Don't worry. Lots of code. There's a lot of math. Here's a bunch of type rules in a figure. And yeah, you can do all these things. It's all generated from a Madoko source. And if you want to read this paper on your phone, you're not happy because it's like PDF and you're like zooming in and out and like scrolling through it. I don't know if you've ever done it. So actually there's also an HTML version that generated at the same time. Here's the HTML version. Hey, it looks kind of, it is the same paper. You see the code, it's a slightly different font because it's HTML. But it's the same paper with the same math in there. Let me see if I can find the math again. There we go, there. The same math rules, and it's a real HTML thing. You can make it bigger, or smaller. Right? So that's cool, and yeah, it's all there, right? So it's actually
the math in the HTML is images or MathML?
So there are different ways to generate it. You're too advanced already. So they're actually in this one they're images,
Okay.
but done in a nice way. So as you can see, they look sharp. It's not like the old Wikipedia stuff.
Okay.
And I think it looks the best. But you can also use other backends, and then you can generate MathML. But it doesn't. It's not there yet, right? Maybe one day it will look good. But now the nice thing about this is it looks exactly like the LaTeX. There's no difference there. I'll show a lot more of that. Other things. Well, you saw it already. Like there's lots of things like references and bibliography stuff. And of course, in the HTML you can do more, right? It's easier to link. It's easier to kind of have little pop-ups like that and jump to stuff. Just happened to be the last one. You know, in the HTML, I generate these little search icons, so you can search for it nicely on the web. Let's use Bing for that today. Right, so back to the... so it's all generated from the same source, and later I'll show you the actual source. So first, I think what I want to stress is that what makes it fun to write in Madoko is that it's just a little bit more pleasant than we're used to. Well, you know, you could argue it's not a real difference. Like if you write item or 2 dots, it's not a real... But in the end, in your whole document, it just feels more pleasant. And it is true that you feel more like you're working with the content. Other things that Markdown does is saying like, well, if I want a link, I don't want it to interrupt the flow. So I put the real link underneath here, underneath my paragraphs. And then I just use these little brackets to say what the link means. So you more of the flow of your text. And it's, oh, actually, here's the result, how it looks like, right? Right. So then, you know, it's the same with like code, right? This is actually real code that I was writing a while ago. In Madoko, you can write the code. It's much more lightweight to write that kind of stuff. So it's your text becomes more apparent what's going on. And this is a rendering in LaTeX of that particular piece of code. So you see that in Markdown, for example, it says, well, if you indent 4 spaces, it becomes code. Or if you put things between these back quotes, it's like inline code. So it's like this lightweight annotation mechanism. Well, I'll get to that later. But I think an important part is that in the end, it's still text files. And one reason why it's so popular is that it was very easy to kind of take these Markdown documents or Madoko documents and transform them into something else and do some processing on it. And I think actually it's part why LaTeX is also so popular, because you can kind of see it and mess with it. And that's a really good thing about Madoko. So it's much easier to process it. And in contrast to LaTeX, I'll give you lots of ways to easily transform the document inside your own document. So I'll show that later.
My gosh, it's a synthesis engine.
Hey?
It's a synthesis engine.
I hope so. What? Yeah, you're like a rule that generates your document. You get it?
As a compliment.
Right.
Programming for the masses.
Right. Yeah, so in the end, though, I still use LaTeX for mathematics, because LaTeX is great for mathematics, and all the papers we do, we love using that. So, you know, if you want to use math, yeah, you're still stuck with kind of difficult commands, but then, you know, you'll figure out that math is actually quite, it's easier in LaTeX. Right, so this would look like this, if I would write this in my presentation. And, you know, you can do crazy tech too, which is important because if you're writing your paper and you're like on your deadline and suddenly you need something amazing, hey, you can actually do it. You can just put in, this is like PS tricks magic, you know, that I copy and paste it. So it's all supported right there. I should have shown the source, but it's kind of fun. Another big thing is like the code. We write a lot of code, and if you look at how we want to, we would love to see code highlighting in the code, or we would love to put like special characters in the code, and all these things are usually very hard to do. So in Madoko, I really try to make that easier to do. So yeah, that's all there. There's like a great command line program that does it. But then I took it a little step further. By putting all of this in the web, and that was it was kind of interesting that my side effect language really came into play here. So I wrote this initial command line program that would process Markdown, and I wrote it all in Coca, and then I kind of realized that 95% of the program was underneath this Markdown function that processes strings and options and gives you back a new, string that's like HTML output, for example. And I saw it only has 2 effects, namely it may diverge or raise exceptions. And that's pretty good because that really means that everything there didn't have any other side effect. Like it wouldn't read from a file or get the options from a global variable or read include files through to the file system or something, which meant I could actually run this program both on the server or client. So Coca generates JavaScript in the backend, and I knew that the JavaScript for all of this can be seamlessly transferred between server or client with exactly the same behavior. And that kind of opened up the way to make this whole thing completely online as an HTML5 web app, and that's what I'm going to demo now. And that's been really cool because suddenly I could integrate with services like Dropbox or OneDrive and GitHub. And now another big part of writing a paper, namely collaborating with others, became much easier because you can now just start writing with someone else on the same paper. And you don't have to set up your special repository stuff, right? It will just work. So I'm going to show that right now.
So just before you do that, so just to clarify, somebody on the web asked, have you tried submitting a paper written by Madoko to a conference or journal, and will they accept it?
Can everybody hear it? Right. So the question was, if people wrote a paper and in Madoko that you could actually publish at a conference. Okay. So yeah, the answer is clearly yes, you can, because the paper I showed in the beginning, that is one of those papers, right? And it looks exactly like the one you would generate with LaTeX. So there is no way, it is the same thing. It's easy to do, actually. Okay. So, right.
So just to confirm that, it would follow the margin rules and indents and things like that, and it would be submittable to ACM.
I have an existence proof. I've done it and submitted already. And the beautiful part is you get not only HTML and PDF output, you get tech output. You send it to EasyChair, you press the button saying compile it in EasyChair, it says it's a great document. So fundamentally, there's many backends, and of course on the way to LaTeX, it's going to produce all the files you need to LaTeX it. Okay. So with a publisher, and you can drop in your style file. And Dan's been awesome, and he understands the fact that we are publishing, and publishers have all these requirements. So yeah, right. it works.
So maybe before I show other stuff, I should show that like how you would write paper. So here's Madoko.net. It's actually a real demo. It's like Madoko.net I'm going to. You can do that too in your own home computer. I'll make the screen big because I promised that. So here's what you would see. But you could kind of say, let me like, how would I do that? So we could kind of say here, like if I generate LaTeX, I get some, I should maybe say this is the editor. Here's like a preview of what you're seeing. This is all on the web. And I just generated a PDF file, which I will open now. And here it is, right? Here's a PDF file. And it uses standard article style, right? But what I could do is say, oh, I want to actually submit to SIGPlan, for example. So what I can actually do is I can open up I can have the SIGPlan conference style here, like it's the class file, CLS. So I grab it and I drop it here, and you see it says document class SIGPlan conf, right? And it's actually in here in my files. There's like this. Here's the style file now. And if I now generate the LaTeX, let's see if it works. Oh my God, never do these kind of demos online, but we'll see. So now it actually, so it sent it, oh, okay, it's done. So it sent it to the server. It generated the LaTeX. Oh. Wait. Did it work? Oh. No, but it's, right. Oh, right, it did work. It's just, oh, right, there it is, right. It's just a single, it's 2-column format, so you can't really see it. You can see it's like shorter. If it's like longer, it will go on the second column. And you see here suddenly the ACM stuff, and so suddenly it's like in SIGPlan conf style. And actually, I have a bunch. Maybe I'll show that too. If you do a new document here, so you do a new document, it says, oh, you haven't saved your local document. We were less messing with it, but I don't care about it, so I'm going to discard it. And I'm going to do a new local document. And then actually here, there's a bunch of predefined guys, like Lipics. It's funny, right? So there you go. Like here's a more, other kind of style file. So it looks cool in the preview, but when I generate the LaTeX, you get a real Lipic styled file. So I'm going to show that. This is one with pictures and math. So it kind of shows more difficult stuff. There we go.
A question, Dan.
Yeah.
Are you generating CSS corresponding to the CLS file for the HTML preview?
Right. So for so this is the LaTeX one. It generated just section commands and everything, the normal stuff. But because I imported the Lipic style file, it creates these little yellow boxes, for example, around the numbers, because that's their style. Or when I have a list, it does little gray thingies, because that's their style. So what I did, when you open up like a standard one in the new, I wrote some CSS for the preview that imitates that style as much as I wanted to, just as a service to the user. Of course, in the end, editors should really provide that for us. Right? But now it looks more like the Lipic style, for example, with like a sans serif font for the headings, for example. But I think the big thing is, did I show the PDF? Or? Yeah. Right, okay. So the big thing is that you do use whatever the publisher wants as its style file, and that's an important thing. So,
can I return to something you did just a minute ago, which is that it prompted you to discard a thing that was not saved?
Right.
That's because you hadn't backed it up with, SkyDrive or something like that, right? Because otherwise, if you're in the cloud, then it's a saveless world, right? Your content is just always there. It was only because it was browser local document that okay, good.
Right.
I'm a new user, so
no.
when I confirm what I believe.
That's exactly right.
I hate save. Save is a stupid concept that never should have existed. So I want to make sure it's gone.
So the nice thing is, if you use your document on Dropbox or OneDrive, it'll be automatically saved all the time, like about every 30 seconds. And it saves continuously in your local storage in the browser. So even if I just hit refresh or close the browser, it will still be there, like almost every keystroke. Right, but this other document was just local. It was never in the cloud anywhere. So that would be a good thing.
Finish your sentence.
So I think this is actually an important thing, something that made me realize. So when you open, when I started working with someone on, say, a Dropbox folder, I realized I have a better backup than normally, because you're in this web thing, but every 30 seconds it's sent to the Dropbox cloud storage, which is probably better than my hard disk, and it synchronizes with all my other devices on all my hard disks, and it saves every version up to a month of all the articles. So that almost means like every 30 seconds you have a version on Dropbox that you can go back to and look at. So I would say it's a very secure way, of more secure probably than how I normally write my documents. So if you integrate with GitHub, though, you have to commit yourself every once in a while, because that's the storage model, right? So then there's still a kind of a save at that point. Mm-hmm.
Can you fix the numbering?
Actually, I can do that. Yeah, so Rooston asked, can I fix the numbering? Because he doesn't like to start at 1. He likes to start at 0. And actually, I made a special Rooston style. So I think if I do 0 here, it'll start, right, there we go. It starts with zeros instead, right? So I made the 0 style to do it. Actually, right, and you see also it figures 0 in section 0, right? It's like, actually, so let me get back to that. So I'll do a little, right, this is also a local document, right? I'll do another new default document here. I wanted to show a few more things about what you can do in Markdown, right? So one thing we already saw, like lists. So this is like simple stuff, right? 2, 3. And I think the nice thing is, though, it's very obvious what to do. So if I want to make this like a Roman numeral list, oh, maybe if I type I, oh, great, right? It's a Roman numeral list now, right? Or if I maybe do like a capital A, maybe, right, it's ABC. So it's like maybe slightly more easy than you normally would think it is, right? Or start at 6, how about that? So those are nice things. Then other things which are nice is like cross-referencing. This is something that's really important for everyone, and we want to be able to easily do it. So a big extension in Madoko is that you can add attributes to stuff. Like here's the section header, Madoko. I could say, well, this is like the introduction. And then everything is like HTML, CSS based, right? So these attributes, this is like an identity I give to the Madoko header. That's the introduction. And I can say C section introduction. And it will be like C section 1, right? And if I hover on section 1, it'll say this is the Madoko chapter, right? Everyone can read this, by the way, right? Mm-hmm. All right, cool. So that's easy stuff. Then, of course, you can name many things. Like maybe I'm going to write some equations. Equation. Let's write a nice LaTeX equation. What is it? Limit infinity. What is it? I think it's something like this, right? Probably. I don't. So, oh right. So actually, so there's a little red guy over here that tells you about LaTeX errors. Oh, that's nice. Like the right is like, well, it's still a LaTeX error, so it's not amazing. But hey, maybe now you can actually find out what you should be doing, right? And then here you see it's still being rendered. It's like grayed out. It means it's sent to the server, and then it's rendered at a certain point, and then it's right there. And it has a nice number. And of course, if I now want to refer to this equation, I could say, C equation Euler, and then I refer to equation 1, right? And similarly, I can make up other blocks, right? Like theorem blocks or something. And maybe here I am going to say it's the Euler, let's say theorem Euler. And maybe I'm going to give it a caption. So you can make more and more little attributes. We are proving something. All right, so you can make more and more attributes, and it will like come out like this. But the funny thing is, the theorem thing is not something that's built into Madoko. It's something you can define yourself, and you can kind of look up how I defined it. And then you can do stuff with it. For example, you can make little rules here about theorem blocks. So you can say, well, if you see a theorem block, maybe the margin on the left should be 1m. And then the whole thing like jumped a little bit to the left, right? And maybe other things you want to do is like saying, I might want to number them a little differently. Well, it turns out that the actual number is called the label of something. And you could say, well, instead of the theorem counter should really be lower alpha or something, right? And it's like theorem A now, right? And maybe you're gonna do other stuff. You can do a lot of stuff there. So you can basically define completely how you do your labeling or numbering.
Is @theorem the right way to specify that?
Say again?
Why is @theorem the right way to specify that? Is it?
Oh, all right. So everything with @s are counters in those attributes.
Okay.
And then you can set like how they are displayed.
So it doesn't matter what you named it. You could have named it anything, and it would have said
right.
The counter. Right. I need a counter. Oh, there's a counter. It happens to be named theorem, but it doesn't.
Right. So actually, it turns out that everything you do here, I make up a counter for you already that's named after the block. So there's an equation counter and a theorem counter and an H1 counter.
So it does matter that it's theorem to be the right counter because you named. So
yes.
It's
yes.
just case insensitive.
And it's really because in the basic style file, I said the label of theorems. Where you see the number, it's kind of defined like this. It says the label is @theorem, like the counter theorem, plus a dot, I think. Right. Oh, now it's double dot. Okay, so it's like the counter theorem. And I can put something in front of it, right? I could say, oh, also do the section counter in a little dash. And then, oh, it's actually H2s here because it's sections. Right. I don't know what's it doing. H1 maybe? Anyway, right, so you see here, why don't this, oh, right. Like a dot. That will do it. Right, so here you see now it's like 1.a because I said, oh, it's really the counter of the sections plus a little dots plus the counter of the theorem. But this is pretty advanced. But then what I want to say is like it's very flexible in how you define these attributes and how you can specify your own blocks and your own things like exercises and answers and those kind of things. Actually, yeah, one other advanced thing I would like to show is about code. So often we write a lot of code, and one way to write code is between these little backticks. And you could write function hello, alert hi, like this. And yeah, we love writing code like this. Actually,
funny.
It does look funny. Where is the hi? So if we write here, we could write. You see the code over there, and it's not highlighted. Well, it turns out you can actually automatically highlight with fancy descriptions code automatically, and this is how you saw in my papers how the Coca code was like nicely highlighted. And another thing you may want to do is often in code or any other kind of block, you would like to kind of make little replacements and do transformations on your code. So one example is if I write here, pi is 3.14, I may want to use the real symbol pi over here. Well, how do I do that, right? It's like, because we're inside code and this looks just like code. Well, you can escape back to Madoko using special escape sequences and then insert funny stuff like a piece of math that evaluates to pi, right? So you kind of see suddenly that I'm rendering here mathematics, and then it inserts a little, pi character. But in general, you would like to do that maybe for large pieces of code or code that's included, and you have many kinds of transformations you might want to do, right? You may also have here a little fancy back arrow, for example, right? So you would like this back arrow to appear like a nice back arrow. And you may have many other symbols, and it often occurs in your papers. So you can make more rules to do that kind of thing. Like you could say, oh, for all the code, I want to do a replacement rule. So if I find this back-looking arrow, then maybe I'm going to insert some LaTeX that does a left arrow everywhere. And I wrote a little regular expression there to do it, and it didn't work.
Yeah. So pi is broken.
Oh, there it is. No, it is actually working. Like there we see the nice arrow popping up, right? And it's this way you can actually write mathematics or code in really nice ways, and you suddenly get a lot of power to do transformations on basically any block you have. Like there's no, I did it now on code, but I can take any piece of code and transform it in these ways.
Are these transformations always related to a style? So if I had multiple pre-blocks in my document, but I wanted this particular transformation to happen only to certain
JavaScript, for example, right? Right. So you could do here, you could say only if it's JavaScript, right? So there's many, and then now I use a class rule, right? So
what if I wanted only some of the JavaScripts?
Some of the right. Oh, okay. Like you can say, oh, I add a little class, my blocks, my block, right? And then do my block here.
Nice.
But of course, the whole idea of Markdown is you write this nice text that you can really read and is like pleasant on its own, right? So the more you're going to add like funny attributes, the less you're like pure in the Markdown spirit. But right, it would be great. So like this pie stuff is really frowned upon, right? So it's great to have a rule in the beginning such that your code here will look really nice.
So is this similarly how I would do something like a LaTeX macro? Like I've seen in papers a million times, people want to delay the decision about what their thing is going to be called in the paper. Right. So they give it like a little macro name and then they late bind it. So would I do it this way as well with the replace?
Yes, actually, so replace is more for advanced stuff, like all the arrows need to look like this. When you have something like, my project, you rather use an entity, right? Just like in, so this is how you write entities, like my project.
Okay.
And then anything here that you define will be replaced. So if I do my project here as, my project, it takes that and puts it right there, right? So for logo stuff, it's much easier to use entities.
Okay.
Instead of using the text for pi, could you just use pi and you can enter pi very easily? It's part of Unicode.
Oh, yeah, you can. Right. You could just enter the Unicode character. Actually here, instead of LaTeX, you can also do the entity, right? Pi. It's like HTML defined. Yeah, and if you know the Unicode code and are able to type it, that will work too. So I don't know. Right, I have no idea how to input it, but
you save this as UTF-8 or something, so that
right, it is all UTF-8, so there can be like direct funny characters in there, and it will work out, even if you translate to LaTeX, which has been very hard to make work. Right, so actually, so it almost concludes my demo stuff. I wanted to show something else, which is maybe important. So I want to open a bigger document. Again, I'm going to discard what I did. I want to show, like, I could go to Dropbox here and go to my Dropbox accounts, and you see basically all my Dropbox stuff. Here's like Madoko and more stuff and my samples. And here's like a big paper. So you see this paper consists of many things because it's much bigger, right? So it looks less cool. Because it starts with a lot of these replacement rules, which I used to do nice mathematics. But I want to, I'll look here instead. So I want to show, so here's like lots of includes because the paper consists of many things, right? And if you double click on the introduction, for example, if I can click we can go there and we go to the introduction and we can see how I write the introduction. And you kind of see it. It looks nice, right? When I'm writing, it's all good, and then you continuously see the preview here. That works all fine. And then when you look at the mathematics, it's of course complicated because I use lots of math, and it's what do you say? That's still LaTeX, so you can't remove that kind of complexity. But what you can do to these replacement rules, and they're used quite heavily. So here I want to show like this particular piece. I have an inference rule here. It's the C sigma sigma. And I actually write CS:S in a little turnstile here, just like textual, because I have replacement rules that make it into the LaTeX commands. And I actually found it really useful because often you have your own little language. And it makes it much more pleasant to write stuff when you have these little turnstiles available, right? And of course, you can still use any funny commands if you still need that. So I found that ability to transform like how it looks much more convenient than defining many LaTeX commands. Although you can still do it, and I also do it. Like I even have like math definitions. There's still a whole bunch of math stuff, right, that we do, but it's just in the mathematics. So it's your documents become sometimes the more you write regular text, the more it looks good. the more you write mathematics, the more you see of the LaTeX stuff. Right? So other big things are, like in this paper, I have a big bibliography, and then you can refer to it. So here we refer to, it's my own paper. I shouldn't use my own paper to refer to. Let me see if another one. Here, like a Wadler, right, marriage. Right, here's Wadler with marriage, right? And this is how you refer to it. And then you see on the other side that, it became a little reference. And there is a big, it's again the last one, right? I did it before, right? There's like the list of things that are there, and Wadler is right there. And there's a big bib file from which all of this is generated. So if we find our Wadler entry, right, there it is. Right, that's it. And I later think, maybe I made a little mistake in my bib entries. Wadler is really like Wadler. Then you'll see that it will be detected that I'm changing my stuff, and it will automatically re-render all the stuff on the server and run bibtech. I don't know what it does for me. And at a certain point, this guy will change back. Right, there's Wadler, right? Which is kind of nice. It's you kind of remove this whole console stuff that we normally do, but it still integrates with your standard, bib files that you're using. So another cool thing, which I love, is like I will discard it. I will go to Madoko 2015. Here's the presentation I made today. And the nice thing is that because I'm leveraging all this web stuff, I can use other people's libraries for doing nice presentations. So you'll see here. What's up? All right. So you see here that it's this is the presentation I've been giving, right? And it has like all this text in it, right? And it'll show you the preview. And when you think about it, it's still like sections and lists. It's all just the regular Markdown. It's just that I style it really specially now. And this styling is already done by others that made big libraries to have cool presentations in HTML. So by leveraging on that, you get a lot of stuff back. So other cool stuff, which I couldn't show here today, is you'll see these little like multiple guys sometimes, which means, I've shared out this particular directory with others. So you can actually, if you go here, what is a one that I can show people? Right, this one, for example. So it says VSTA. So Nikolai Björner shared that with me when he gave his summer school presentation. And he has a big, where is it? Right. So you can see there's multiple people in it. It means like Nikolai works with me and with many other people on this big summer school presentation. And we can all work together. Here you saw briefly before it imported the actual styling, how it would look like. And then he had this big presentation with lots of spelling errors, I can see. Well, actually, things like data log, right? So you could say ignore data log and it'll get a little.
You added spell check.
Hey, how about that? Right, interpolants, I think that's fine too. Well, there you go. I see. Let's interpolant. I probably ignored the wrong one before. Okay, well, so it's a big presentation. It has lots of math and lots of. Actually, so much math. I'm glad I didn't go to that summer school because it's like it's really, really like it's out there. I think, right? But hey, that's cool. So for them, it was great, and everybody can work together. And if you do, a little guy will pop up in the corner and show you who's also working on it, and then where they're working in real time. So you can. The merging is still three-way merges, not real time, but you can see where someone is working. So you can at least avoid conflicts most of the time.
So is it like Word where there's an implicit lock, or where So like the way that Word does this is where I'm currently working, there's an implicit lock and other people cannot come in and edit it, which avoids merge conflicts.
Right.
Is there something like that here? Or?
So there's no lock.
Okay.
So you can see where the other person is. You can't see what he's doing at that moment in time because the merging happens just with three-way merges on the Dropbox shared thing or the GitHub shared thing. And that means if you can work at the same time at the same part, and then some of you get a merge conflict and you have to resolve it yourself, and you'll see it in the text. Like I show both pieces and it renders nice too, and then you pick what it should have been.
So it's not real time. I mean,
it's not real time.
Seconds,
right.
You may get a merge conflict. Something might pop. You'll see two different versions.
Right.
You may have to do
but you see in real time where the other is.
Right.
So to do it, you have to kind of be a little bit like evil and go for it. Or, and this is a big thing, right? Which is a real difference from Word or like Google Docs. You could both be on the plane working on the talk, right? And then you come back and you both added a lot of content. And now you get like just a solid three-way merge. Which, yeah, there may be conflicts, but that's part of it, right? But it means your offline mode works well. And in particular, yeah, this whole app is an HTML5 app that's cached, so it works even if I unplug it. I just won't be able to save on Dropbox at that point in time.
So what if I'm in this nice editor and I know there's some command, but I don't know what it is? What do I do?
Right. Email me. No.
No. It exists. It exists. I'm leading you on. What are you have a little help.
Right. So there's two things. So first, all the standard Markdown stuff, there's tons of help everywhere because many people do this. But there's also like this help guy here. Like there's a menu, right? There's lots of menus, but this is the interesting. And so this is a reference manual that's pretty extensive.
I was thinking of the menu on the left side.
Oh, you'll like this one. Oh, right. Yeah, this is actually... right. You want to see... Right, so there's a reference menu. There's also this menu you can put here. And then, I don't know. Like, this is a crazy document to be editing. But suppose I have some stuff here, like hi, and I want to make it bold. You could, like, select the thing and select bold, right? And you can see it's Control-B would work, too. So now it's bold. And again, it's unbolded, or you could make it cursive, or code, right? Or you could make lists, or yeah, you could insert a picture. Actually, yeah, let's insert a picture here. That's fun. So you can just drop a file. I think I showed it before with the bib file. Let's do yin yang, and then there's yin yang picture right there, right? And it will automatically, like your document is really more than just your document, right? There's bib files, CSS files, and also these like images. And somehow he put a picture of me in his presentation. I don't know. Right, there's like the dictionary of words that you're ignoring. There's all this, he probably has C++, so he has the color highlighter there, all these things, right? Which are important in the end for the final document. So these are all there as text files. And they're all Dropbox synchronized, and also on your local machine, and you could run the command line program, and it would work too. Right? Anyway, right, I think I want to conclude my talk. Yeah, I wanted to say more. I want to say more about the Coca experience, which has been great, like how I implemented all of this in this language with side effect tracking. But I think, we spent enough time, so I'll skip it and I'll just go to the questions. Right? Thanks a lot for your attention, and I hope you're going to use it, and I'll help you.
Suppose I commit to this. This is very appealing. Am I always reliant on the existence of Madoko.net running and somebody funding it?
Right. So the question is, if I use it for my documents, what if Madoko.net stops existing, right? Yeah. Well, so the good part is there's the command line program, which does exactly the same thing. So you'll always have all your files. You can always run that command line program, and it'll translate to standard tech, right, and standard HTML. So you get, I would say you're pretty safe, right? It would be bad if I die, but in many ways, right? Right.
It's all open source, so all you need to do is get Haskell, build Coca, get Madoko, build Madoko with Coca, and you're set. That's all.
So actually, it builds quite easily. So many people have done this. So it is open source, and you can just build it. So you're actually better off.
Packages, right? The Node.js packages, you don't have to build it.
Right, you don't have to build it. Right, you could just npm install the thing. It's very easy to install. But if you wanna kind of like, if I die, you wanna make your own extensions, you can, right? Like you can. Okay, sorry.
Let's assume you don't die. So the situation as far as Node.js, what is installable through Node? Is it Cocoa? Is it all of Madoko?
So maybe this is
what runs client side?
a general thing. So Node.js is a environment that uses Chromium in the V8 engine to run JavaScript locally on your platform, and it's mostly used to make web servers. So people think of web servers, but it's really just giving you an operating system API, like a POSIX API, and it's very easy to install many platforms, and that's my target platform normally for Coca, because Coca generates JavaScript code, and it means they have a package manager called npm. So once you have Node.js installed, it's easy. Then you can do npm install Madoko, and Madoko is there.
So it's a module in Node.js.
Yes, and that's all you have to do to install it.
And you'll have the visual experience within basically Chromium instance.
No, I wish you had that too, but you have to go to the website with a visual experience.
So you'll have the command line experience.
You have the command line experience, right? And that would be like using LaTeX. You would have to, of course, for all the formulas, you still have to install LaTeX yourself, which is a hassle. And this is why the website is nice, because there's like no install. You just go and write.
Tables. For empiricists, the pain point is presenting large tables of data.
Right.
What do tables look like if you're writing them up in Madoko?
They look kind of nice. Let me see. I think there we have it. Well, here's a complex table. It was my challenge thing, like do it in LaTeX, because normally people have a hard time like figuring. I know multi-column, is it R first or 2 first or 3, and then like double lines and stuff, or like no line, that kind of stuff. But yeah, on the other hand, they're also simple. So let me see how I don't. Well, you can do it, and they look kind of nice. Oh, here I'll insert the table right here. Let's do it here. A 3-column table. So here's the table. So this is how they'll look like. There it is, right? And I give you editor support. So when you can like do blah 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 blah, and then it'll like reformat it like nicely for you. They're pretty powerful. You can do a lot of stuff. So yeah, it works well. Like what can I say? Like maybe I don't like. So never do vertical lines in the table. It's like considered bad. So this would be a better table, and then you can have little attributes here like book table.
So at one point, some of them had vertical lines, and other ones didn't.
Oh, it was still updating, right? So I'm now in a really big document. This is like a 100-page math-heavy presentation, right? So automatically the website throttles how fast it updates. So if your document is smallish, it's like immediate. It's larger, it waits a little, so you have a typing pause. So now you see all the vertical lines are gone, and it's like just horizontal lines.
What are the columns?
Right, so then you need to learn about Markdown, like how it works. So this is centering, and the other ones are right aligned.
Is it standard Markdown? Is that how it handles tables, or is it
semi-standard Markdown? Okay. Right. So all the other ones do it similarly, like this. Like so, it works in Pandoc, for example, and Cramdown. So you can make large tables, and I do have support also for long tables that break over pages in the PDF, etc.
How about let's say now I want to write a book, and then I want features for a book. For example, I want a textbook like I want sidebars. I want bar that are linked. Should be placed in the same place and close to where I'm going to reference and all that nice stuff.
Right. So this is cool because what you can do in Madoko is you make these custom blocks like you saw a lot, like math or what did I have, theorem and equation. Those are all you can define yourself. So you would do one that says like side margin. Mm-hmm. And then you can write pieces of LaTeX. So you have tech raw blocks that you can write. You can just do your own tech, and you can hook into that particular environment and then say, oh, use this and this LaTeX environment and commands.
This would be translated to HTML because
so in the HTML you have to do something else. So you would write a bunch of CSS rules. Mm-hmm. So you write a little style. You just start writing a style, like for example, I could just start here with like a style or a tech raw block, and then the math, for example, here it has the math class. So you would do maybe background color. Background color is gray, right? And it would when it updates, I think I have to say important. Oh, colon gray. Right. So it'll just insert this in the HTML, but not in the tech, right? And then for tech, you can write another rule that is a little more like saying CSS on class math, and then you do your special commands. So of course, at that point, you need to know what you're doing, because if you write the wrong LaTeX, it'll break the LaTeX, right? But yeah, it's possible. And this is how most of these things are defined, like figures. They're not like, well, they're built in because I wrote them, but they're not built into Madoko. They're just built-in rules. By the way, I should have side margin as a built-in rule. That's nice, right?
Yeah. If you share using OneDrive or a Dropbox or something, what do you give access to?
Right. So everything, which is a bad thing. Like when you do Dropbox, Madoko can see your entire Dropbox, all your folders, everything. I rather had that it was like an app that you could only see your Madoko approved folder, but that's not, Dropbox doesn't support it yet. So OneDrive doesn't support anything like that yet, because the OneDrive also doesn't support sharing at this point, but maybe in the future, right?
Well, why couldn't you with a OneDrive folder just create an account which is only for Madoko? And share your folder with that account, and then that folder is what that account has access to. And
sure, yes. The same with Dropbox. You can make your own account and then
create a new account. And
right.
That account only gets access to what you want Madoko to have.
Right. No problem. Right. You can do that. Right. Of course, the Madoko server doesn't do anything with this, right? It's just I'm like a good guy. Right.
And you've written perfectly secure code so that we don't have to.
I hope so. Right.
Hey, it's in a type-safe language.
So two more feature questions. So basically reviewing things, like for collaboration, where you do annotations and highlighting and whatever. Right. And then the other one is revision history. How do I see what's changed in my document over time?
So, I would love to see like tracking of comments inside your documents, right? So I don't know how or what would be the best way.
There must be like some commenting thing where I can put text in the Madoko that does not show up.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So I could use that for leaving notes for my co-authors and things
so
like that.
yeah, that's really easy to do.
Okay.
People do that all the time. Like you made the, maybe I'll show that one here. Like often you see this kind of stuff, right? So this is what people do now, which works pretty well. Where's the F-star? So this is F-star tutorial. And a whole bunch of people worked on that. And then there's a bunch of, they made their own author notes. Well, so here you see, like NS is Nick Swami, right? So it's a to-do block, but in red, and it will be with Nick, and etc. Right. So every time someone writes one of these to-do blocks, it'll pop up in the text, and you can see it. And that works well enough. I don't know if you see any here. I think they don't write many.
But then it is showing up in the output. I think you said it didn't show up.
So you want to show it in the preview. You don't want to show it in the final output. So the to-do block takes care of that.
Oh, okay.
And the other thing, what would be really great, is if you could somehow... no, I can't see. So if you could somehow do revision histories too. So currently, that's just not there. So there's two things you can do. One of them is you can take snapshots and give it a message. So if you do a snapshot, it saves the whole thing with the message. So that's pretty good. And the date.
Being the whole file, or
like everything needed to regenerate your documents.
okay, so the bib and all the
Everything,
external stuff.
right?
Okay, good.
That you did at that point in time. So that's a good snapshot, right? You do that before you publish or something.
Yeah.
And then you can, of course, look in your Dropbox history to see every 30 seconds, what your document looked like. And then if you integrate with GitHub, you see all your commits like normally. So then you get this, but then it's a regular GitHub work style, and I kind of like the more real-time sharing on Dropbox or OneDrive, because that's you see everyone working. But then you lack this revision history. If you have a great idea on how to do this, that would be great. And especially if you can piggyback on existing technology.
Like you must, so just to understand the user model, you must have an undo stack, right? Like I can hit Control-Z and it will undo and edit. And that lives how long? Like until I refresh the browser page or something?
Yes. Well, right. I'm changing it. It grew really big, the undo buffer. So I got into trouble. I'm now indeed, I clear it on refresh, but I want to change that. But right. There is a limit to how much you can undo, and it's always within one file, right? So often there's a whole bunch of files and includes, and you really want revisions of everything. So snapshot is best at this point.
So there's an online question. What will happen if I open an existing LaTeX document in Madoko? That's a question of how do you transfer LaTeX to Madoko?
So I just happen to have the menu open. So it does have an import feature, which is still in its initial stages, but it works quite well. So you can basically click on it and then import a LaTeX document. And you will have to supply the first document you have, and then drag and drop in all the includes that you have. And it works pretty well. But of course, I can't parse LaTeX, really. So it does a good effort job. It turns out that most of your commands are usually actually for mathematics and not so much for like sections and small caps and that kind of stuff. On most documents I tried up till now, it works pretty well.
Stuff you can't translate, you leave as embedded LaTeX blocks that the user could go in and
fix up. Right. And then so you see still all these commands, and then you can fix them. I've just been trying this on a, I don't know. Yeah, I can probably show that on someone's dissertation, and dissertations are very complicated documents. So I was surprised how well it actually came. Oh, here, the biomed, it's more safe. So this is a document that was converted automatically from a paper in the Vibe group by Andrew Beagle. And it looks pretty good, right? So this is all automatic. So there's very few funny stuff left out. Well, here you see some funny stuff. Like there's still an SI command, which I don't translate, which is some package I don't know about. So there you'd have to go in and do your own stuff. But most of the things come out quite well, right? So anyway, thanks a lot for your attention. I hope you're going to use it. And awesome. Thanks.